Harry and Meghan Markle desperately need a win in 2024, but unless they're paying for it, like the Legends of Aviation Award, it just ain't happening, especially with the resurgence of the Lilibet debacle. Naming their daughter Lilibet ended disastrously for them. And what's really interesting is this new publication, it's not really giving us any new information. It's just reminding us yet again of how poorly Harry and Meghan have behaved over the years, especially towards the Queen. And this whole Lilibet situation is just an excellent reminder of that, because I wasn't making my YouTube videos at the time, but I remember when that name first came out and I was like, are you serious right now? Are you serious? Are you sure the Queen's okay with that? Because it's one thing to name your daughter after the Queen. It's another to take a very personal nickname, one that's attached to people who have passed away, some dear, dear family members of Her Majesty. So we're going to revisit this story, or visit this story for the first time on this channel, talking about the debacle that is the name Lilibet, and how just Harry and Meghan just can't seem to stop, and why the never-ending press stories are just going to continue and go on and on and on again. So guys, but if you haven't been to Royal News Network, my name is Brittany. I provide you all compelling royal commentary. So if you like crowns and all things that glitter, feel free to hit that subscribe button. I would love to have you back. I also have a newsletter, a fashion channel devoted to royal fashion. I also have an upcoming trip to Scotland. So if you would love to explore the Scottish Highlands with me, I would love to have you. I think it would be absolutely fantastic fun, because I love Scotland. I think you will too. So if you guys are interested in that, feel free to check out the link down below. You'll also meet some new friends and just be able to hang out in one of the most gorgeous places on earth. So it is absolutely, absolutely fabulous. And if you guys want to check it out, I also have a video I just did on the top 10 moments of the Danish proclamation proclaiming Frederik to be King of Denmark and his wife, Queen Mary. There are some awesome moments. So if you guys are interested in checking that out, feel free to click on the link up above, because I worked on that and it was so fun to watch. Some of you guys watched the live stream and everything, and I would love for you to check it out more, because sometimes we need positive royal stories, and this is one of them. Let's talk about Lilibet though. The Lilibet naming debacle that went so wrong for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. They had announced to the world after the birth of their daughter that they had decided to name her Lilibet, which was the precious childhood nickname of Her Majesty the Queen. And it is one that was used by a very, very select few family members. We are talking King George V, Queen Mary, so those were her grandparents, King George VI, her mother. We also have Prince Philip. We also have some monarchs. I believe Queen Margrethe calls Her Majesty Lilibet, but this is a name used by a very, very select few number of people. A tiny cadre of people use this name, and it is a nickname, one that was created because she couldn't quite say Elizabeth, so they went with Lilibet. It is something so cute and sweet, and something that Her Majesty apparently told people that she wanted to sort of retire after the death of Prince Philip, because it was a name that was so precious to her, and one she didn't really want to discuss too much anymore, and one she didn't really want used to remind her of those who passed on. But of course, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, do they care? Of course they don't. Of course they don't, because they announced after the birth of their daughter that they had named her Lilibet Diana. Now this is nothing against Lilibet. I'm sure she is a precious, sweet little girl, but this is about her parents and what they decided to do with her name. And I will also say right now 100% that essentially they just copied Catherine and William. Obviously Catherine and William named their daughter Charlotte Elizabeth Diana, and Harry and Meghan just chopped off Charlotte and basically named her Elizabeth Diana as well. Now, I don't fault Harry for using either of those names really, but I feel like he should have done maybe something more creative and chosen a different name. One I posited on Twitter is that they should have used Isabella or Isabel, which is the Spanish or more Latin version of Elizabeth. I don't understand why they didn't do something like that. But they decided to go with Lilibet, and they announced this to the world that they had called Her Majesty the Queen and told her this marvelous story about the naming and that she was so excited. Let's revisit what Harry and Meghan initially said here. So it began with simply when they announced her birth. It said in June 2021, Lily is named after her great-grandmother, Her Majesty the Queen, whose family nickname is Lilibet. Now that is true, but that is also not necessarily totally true, because nobody within really the immediate family called her that. She was ma'am, she was Her Majesty, she was mom, grandma, but she wasn't Lilibet. That was a name used by people who knew her when she was born back in 1926. All the way back then, decades ago, that's when that name initially came about. And those are the people who used it, people who knew her when she was a child or around that time. Those are the people who really use that name, not the family. So they're sort of misconstruing this, because yes, family members did use it, of course, but it was people who knew her when she was a child, when she was a teenager, not Harry and Meghan. Harry and Meghan don't call her that. The rest of the family really doesn't call her that. It's a very, very select few number of people, most of whom had already died, who used that name. And of course, once they got a bit of clapback from that, Harry and Meghan snapped back. And this is from the Telegraph. And it said at the time, the Duke spoke with his family in advance of the announcement. In fact, his grandmother was the first family member he called. During that conversation, he shared their hope of naming their daughter Lilibet in her honor. Had she not been supportive, they would have not used the name. But the truth is in the details. And it's interesting how they frame it, because it was all of a sudden like, yes, we did. But then it was like, well, we asked her if we could name our daughter in her honor Lilibet. And if she had not been supportive, but can you really be totally supportive if somebody springs that on you? I know that's happened to me. Actually, somebody at a place I used to work for asked me out suddenly, and I was just like kind of caught off guard, and I really didn't want to. But I did say yes, even though I didn't really want to. And that was just something where it was just like, I was just like frozen. I'm not good sometimes spur of the moment. And so I'm sure they were like, it could be, and it could have been two different ways. They said, well, we want to name her in honor of you. And she was thinking Elizabeth, not Lilibet. Or they could have said, well, we've named her in honor of you, not giving you the option, but telling you we've already made this decision and we're going to do this, which is very much how Harry and Meghan have operated this whole time. And Her Majesty was 95, I believe, when this occurred. And so she was probably like, thanks for asking, I guess. Like, she probably didn't really feel like she had any recourse. And at this point, too, she's probably so tired of dealing with them. She's probably thinking to myself, what do I do? What do I do? And the thing is that Harry and Meghan made this big splash, made this big pushback, but then something else happened, which I did not remember until we got these excerpts from Robert Harriman's book, which is coming out, which is that the BBC reported that Her Majesty did not approve. Did not support, what have you. She did not. And Harry and Meghan sort of freaked out. And they were like, well, we're going to sue the BBC. We're going to send them a letter, legal letter. We're going to get all our lawyers on this. And that's what they were planning. But then something else happened, which was that the palace didn't back their play. The palace was like, we told them that. What do you want us to do? And Harry and Meghan had to bite back their legal advances. So here is what it says. This is from the Telegraph again. The BBC reported that a palace source said the Queen was not asked by the Duke and Duchess of Sussex about naming their daughter Lilibet. And then the Duke and Duchess of Sussex accused the BBC of libel, instructing lawyers to tell media organizations the claim was false and defamatory. When asked by the Telegraph, the palace declined to deny suggestions that the Queen was never asked. A source suggested the Queen was told about the name after the baby was born, rather than her permission being sought in advance. So again, you have these interesting competing narratives here. Harry and Meghan saying, well, we asked, we sought. But the palace is saying, no, they told. And they essentially demanded, which is so, again, Harry and Meghan's MO. And the Queen didn't really feel like she had a ton of recourse. They could have even filed the birth certificate already when they told her. And she was like, the kid's already legally Lilibet. What do I do? How do I tell him no? Because I really do want to tell him no. And what I thought was most interesting, one of the headlines we saw, is that they've even taken my name. They've taken essentially everything from me, and now they've taken my name. And I feel that because that is something that was special to her. That was something that was really, really special to her. And so to demand and take that name without really asking just showed so much disrespect on the part of Harry and Meghan. They didn't really care for Her Majesty's feelings. It was all about them. And then when they got called out on it, they immediately sicked their lawyers on whoever they could. and only had to march that back, slipping their tail in between their legs, when the palace was like, no, we cannot back your play here. We cannot back your play because Her Majesty is upset. And this is what the interesting thing is we got from Harry and Meghan's book, which is that apparently nobody had ever really seen Her Majesty quite that mad. The author says, one privately recalled that Elizabeth II had been as angry as I'd ever seen her in 2021 after the Sussexes announced that she had given them her blessing to call their baby daughter Lilibet, the Queen's childhood nickname. The couple subsequently fired off warnings of legal action against anyone who dared to suggest otherwise, as the BBC had done. However, when the Sussexes tried to co-opt the palace into propping up their version of events, they were rebuffed. Once again, it was a case of recollections may vary. The late Queen's reaction to the Oprah Winfrey interview, as far as Her Majesty was concerned, those noisy threats of legal action duly evaporated, and the libel action against the BBC never materialized. And I don't think here it's necessarily, of course, that they named their daughter Lilibet. Of course, she was probably mad and frustrated about that. Who wouldn't be? But I think the thing was the lying, the co-opting and pulling the Queen into this narrative that probably really, really irked her. It's like, I did not say that. You did not give me an option. You told me what you were going to do, and I just had to sit there and take it. And that is how you've operated. They did the same thing with Megxit. And so how dare you say I approved of this, that I was happy about this, when I wasn't. All you had to do was say, yes, we named our daughter Lilibet. You didn't have to go and react, because what Harry and Meghan, I'm sure, were reacting to is a bunch of people calling them out and going, are you nuts? Like, how dare you do that? And they're like, but we got permission, see? And the palace at the end of the day said, well, actually, no, you really didn't. You told us what you were going to do instead of asking and requesting that you could do what you wanted to do. I think that is where the true hurt lies for Her Majesty. It's not just that they stole that name. It's that they lied about her giving them permission to use that name. But regardless of what happened, because we still don't know the exact details, obviously we have competing narratives. And interestingly, of course, what did Harry do? He did not include this entire debacle in his book Spare. Of course he didn't. Why tell the truth? Because then he's on record and then all the people are questioning. It would be very interesting. But the thing is, I think, looking at this whole picture is, and I know all the conspiracy theories about the kids, I'm not one who subscribes to any of that. But here is the thing. The person who is going to suffer from this the most, the ultimate victim in this entire scenario, is not necessarily the Queen. It's their own daughter, Lilibet, who will have to live the rest of her life under this cloud of suspicion and questioning over whether or not Her Majesty the Queen gave her permission to use that name. Her simple name resulted in legal action by Harry and Meghan. Why? Because they could not keep their story straight. They had to justify themselves by trying to rein a 95-year-old woman into their schemes. And she said no, they were rebuffed, and then they had to walk back everything with their tail between their legs. And the person who will suffer is Lilibet, whatever she calls herself, for the rest of her life. People will always wonder about that. When she dies, maybe, this story will come up again. And I don't know if that's true or not, but I'm just saying that this story is something that will not die. And that's the problem with Harry and Meghan, because I know Sussex stands complain all the time. We talk about them too much and everything, but they come up all the time. And that's because of their own things, their own mistakes they have made, their own lies, misinformation, half-truths. All of that will get regurgitated again and again because they are the ones who created the mess in the first place. They can't get away from it because they created it. And it's going to be talked about again because this situation, the overall Harry and Meghan debacle, will always be discussed in the realm of monarchy because people will wonder what went wrong, how can we adjust, how can we change? And it'll be, of course, always a topic of discussion, but never, ever, ever in a good way. And poor Lilibet will have to deal with this again for the rest of her life. And she may even get teased in schools going, well, your great-grandma didn't give you permission for that name. How dare you go by Lilibet? Can you imagine the childhood playground taunts that she might get because her parents were stupid enough to try to think that they could co-opt the situation and not give deference correctly? And I understand some people are like, well, anybody can name their child that. And somebody even posted, was like, well, somebody in Sussex has named their kid that. I was like, that doesn't matter. What matters is what family does. It's about respecting people within your family, respecting their desires, their wishes, their past, their present, their future, respecting people within your family. That is what this is about for Harry and Meghan. They did not respect the Queen. And as a result, her name got pulled into this situation where it didn't need to be. She could have been totally out of the situation. Why didn't they just name her Lily? And just say that Lily doing L-I-L-I is in honor of Lilibet. Why didn't they just do that? I don't understand. But no, they had to drag Her Majesty into their mess, as they've dragged everyone. And I ended my Twitter post on this, and I think it's true. Why do Harry and Meghan always try to make everyone's lives so miserable? Like, they just seem to spread misery and disaster wherever they go. And of course, 2024 is no exception in the slightest. They are already heading towards a massive train wreck. So guys, let me know what you think of this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye.